Welcome. In this video, we will discuss about the call for action plan to stop the school dropouts. So what happened? COVID-19 has affected a lot of people, a lot of aspects of our general life as we know it. The lockdown has literally locked us inside our own houses, but there is one sector which is specifically hampered, that is your education. So the children has been asked to not go to school because of the rampant pandemic, and that has taken severe hits on their learning outcome. So education is something which was severely hit, and that is why the Union Ministry of Education has actually asked the state government to come up with the plans that how they are going forward will work towards the factor to school dropouts should be decreased. So that is the whole idea, how the state government could work that the school dropouts are decreased even when the COVID-19 pandemic is over and the children are again starting to go to school. So in this video, we will discuss about the various details, and then we will also shed some light on the initiatives taken by the government. So let's start. So initially let's talk about some details, some aspects of it. So United Nations has estimated that almost 24 million school age children are at a risk of dropout from the educational system due to COVID-19 this year. So you can understand, because of the COVID-19, the single reason is going to make around 24 million children. So you can understand 24 million is staggering amount. So 24 million children could drop out from the school system, as has been highlighted by the United Nations reports, which means that governments across the world should actually work towards how they could decrease the dropout rate. So that is something where the Indian government take cognizance of, and hence the government, the Union Ministry of Education, has asked to determine the scope of the problem, to identify the out of school children in the 6 to 18 years age group through a comprehensive door to door survey. So this is what happened. Just remember, from a polity perspective, education is a concurrent subject. What do you mean by concurrent subject is that both your center government as well as state government can make laws regarding it. So hence the right now what happened, the Union Minister of Education, they have actually asked the state government, then they should first of all identify. So that is why it is important that they conduct a door-to-door survey for the age group of 6 years to 18 years students. They will go and check it out, whether they are in school, they are out of school, what has happened during the pandemic, whether they were attending the school earlier. All these things, a comprehensive kind of a door-to-door survey is required, so that at least the government has the data to work on. So that is something which the ministry has asked the state government. Apart from that, the ministry has directed the states to prepare an action plan to prevent increased dropout, lower enrollments, loss of learning, and deterioration in the gains made in providing universal access, quality, and equity in recent years. So this is again something which the government of India is talking about. So we made the right to education a fundamental right under Article 21A. So that is what we have done. We have made that every children has the right to education. We talk about free and compulsory education. We were able to make a lot of progress since the RTE Act 2009 came into picture, and in fact it has shown result that our gross enrollment ratio actually even reached 100% for the primary education. So there were a lot of profits or gains made in this battle against the illiteracy in India, and there were a lot of winning movements. But what happened? COVID-19 single-handedly could reverse this trend, and that is why the government is actually asking the state government to come up with a plan so that the something could be done about the increased drop rate. So increased drop rate, some plan to reduce it. For an example, the government is suggesting that come up with the midday meal scheme, so that there is an incentive for the students to come back to school. So that is something again the government is planning towards, that how the dropouts could be decreased. Then there is also aspect that there will be a lower enrollment now because of the shrinking income. So we know that the lockdown put a lot of constraint on the economy also. The income is shrinking, and because the income is shrinking, there is a possibility that the students will not be returning to the school in next year, and there is a problem of lower enrollment. Again, the ministry has asked the state government to figure out what could be done, and also what could be done to improve the learning outcome. So what happened during the time there was a deterioration of the learnings in the education. To improve learning outcome is something which the ministry has asked that the state government should have a plan of action to figure out how they are going to reduce the deterioration to the quality, accessibility and equity of education which has been gained after so much effort for a long period of time. So this is something which was in news, and that is why we are actually talking about it. Now let's move forward and also learn something about the major initiative under the National Mission on Education through the information and communication technology. So what happened under when the pandemic was in role and the lockdown was imposed, it was realized that the school need to remain closed but the education cannot stop. So in that case, ICT is something, information communication and technology, which kind of come to the aid and propose the idea of online education. So it's not the only time that India actually went into the online education. There were a lot of initiatives which were already taken. It's just that the pandemic highlighted that how the ICT could really help in providing education and increasing more accessibility to education. So in that regard, let's discuss some of the initiatives. First, talk about the SWAM. So this is an initiative, the study webs of active learning for young aspiring minds. Again, you don't have to remember the full form. The more important aspect is what it is. So it is an integrated platform for offering online courses covering school 9 to 10th to PG level. So postgraduate level courses are also available, not only school, not only the 9 to 12 standard courses are available over here, but even to the PG level that is available. And not only the students who can get benefit from it, but even the teachers could refer to the resources over here. So that is your SWAM. Then there is also a SWAM Prabha, which is an initiative to provide 32 quality educational channel through the DTH, which is your direct to home, across the length and width of country on a 24/7 basis. So basically these are your TV channels SWAM by the name of SWAM Prabha, in which you can get the quality education like 24/7, and that was also before the time the pandemic was in case. So that is again which India was already embracing. Then there is also a National Digital Library of India, which is a project to develop a framework of virtual repository of learning resources with a single window search facility. So you must know that if you go to a physical library, you see plethora of books available over there. Similarly, this is going to be a digital library. There will be a lot of repos of resources available over there, and you will be able to search it very properly through a single window. You will be like, you will type the keyword and you will get the book. So such kind of National Digital Library of India is also one of the initiative under the National Mission on Education through ICT. Then there are others also. Let's take an example of a spoken tutorial, which is 10-minute long audio video tutorial and open source software to improve employment potential of students. So what it is, basically it is an open source software. Open source software simply means that you do not have to buy any license for it. So mostly it is freely available and it could be improved openly also by the contributors. So people could send in their contribution to. So open source software asks for free accessibility without license, and spoken tutorial is a open source software only, which means it is freely available. What it is, there will be like 10-minute videos over there, audio video visuals would be present over there, and they will help the student to increase their employability. So they will provide them with some kind of information which could help them to increase their chances of getting employed. So that is the idea of a spoken tutorial. Also an important part is that it is going to focus on self-learning, It will be audio dubbed into 22 languages with an availability of online version. So it is available in 22 language. All the languages which are listed under the Schedule 8 of India in our constitution is Schedule 8 of constitution. All the languages which are mentioned over here are like available in the spoken tutorial. Then there is another initiative with the name of free and open source software for education. So I just explained to you what is an open source software. This is also an open source software which is available to the educational institution for promoting the use of open source software. So this is basically so that educational institution could also embrace the open source software for imparting education. Free and open source software for education, or FOSSEE, has been envisioned. Then there is a concept of virtual lab. So basically it is a project to develop a fully interactive simulation environment to perform experiments, collect data, and answer questions to access the understanding of knowledge acquired. So basically, like the experiments that you do on physical lab, over here in virtual like labs also, you will get a simulation. You will be able to perform experiment, collect data, and all such kind of things which could be done in a physical lab. So this is again becomes very important in the time when the schools were literally shut. How will you go ahead and do the experimentation? So virtual lab comes handy in that regard. And then finally, let's also talk about an interesting initiative by the name of eYantra. It is a project for enabling effective education across engineering colleges in India on embedded systems and robotics. So basically, we know that we are in the Industrial Revolution 4.0, and robotics is one of the major components over here. Like going forward in year, robotics is something which will take the landscape, and in that regard, it is very important that we are training our young minds for the right skill set of the future. So in that regard, eYantra is the one where the engineering students were actually taught about the embedded system and robotics so that they can develop skills and maybe can even pursue career forwards in the robotics. So that is the idea of eYantra. So you see, we have so many initiatives through which the government of India was trying to impart the education through ICT, and that is why in fact India is one of the country which was able to embrace the online education in way faster than other countries, even like for an example Japan. So Japan, you consider it as very high tech countries, but it was not able to embrace online education as easily. So this is again something you could say has been an achievement, even though the education learning outcomes has been deteriorated throughout the time of COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown. So that is something which was highlighted by the National Statistical Organization, which will talk about how the digital divide is exaggerated during the time of lockdown. And these are the data, these are some of the details which you could utilize when you are trying to write your answers in mains. So there could be a question. In fact, this year itself in mains they have asked about the different effect of COVID-19. So how the COVID-19 has effect on education, you can write about all this data. So this is important from that perspective. So across India, only 1 in 10 households have a computer, whether a desktop, laptop or tablet. So basically the idea why we are discussing it, because think about it, as children looking at the small screen of a smartphone is not very feasible. They are very susceptible to the screen light, and all such kind of health issues could be triggered, and that is not very helpful for the mental health of children as well. So that is why this NSO actually conducted a survey that but it has been highlighted that only 1 in 10 household actually have a computer. However, almost a quarter of all homes have internet facilities accessed via a fixed or mobile network using any device, including smartphones. What does that mean? That 1/4 of the household actually have internet connection, which means that major internet connection are being utilized through mobiles only. So that is also something which has been highlighted. Most of these internet enabled homes are located in cities where 42% have internet access, while if you look at the scene in rural area, there are only 15% who are connected to the internet. So you can understand this is creating urban rural divide which already existed in India. this particular pandemic has actually increased it. So the children who are in cities get better internet connection, better availability to resources. They were still able to like keep some track of the learning outcomes, but on the other hand, in rural India, the education was severely affected, where only 15% household could actually have the internet. Apart from that, there are, and we know that the maximum population of India resides in rural India. So we can understand that there are lot of losses in terms of the learning in the last year. Then, even as the digital literacy is likely to grow during the pandemic, concerns remained about the basic literacy. So, India has had a painful battle to increase its literacy rates from the post-independence time, like from the pre-independence. So, in that regard, it is considered that COVID-19 could have an effect on the progress which was being made in increasing the literacy rate. So over the last decade, the literacy rate have increased from 71.7% to 77.7%, with the highest gain coming from the rural women. So this was something which was very remarkable. India was making strive in increasing its literacy, specifically among rural women. But in the last year, when the lockdown was in picture, and even right now, most of the schools are still closed. Some have started opening in the last month of December, but still most of the schools across the country again remain closed. So in that regard, what these all things could actually have an impact on the rural education more importantly. So these are certain data which has been highlighted by NSO. You could use them when you are writing your essay, and even when you are writing your mains answer regarding the impact of COVID-19. So these are certain details which you should have known. So I hope you have understood this video. If you have any doubt, feel free to drop a comment. Thank you.